All disease begins in the gut. This is what they're teaching at Harvard Medical School. When you understand that you have to get the map of where you are throwing gasoline on the fire, how you're throwing gasoline on the fire, when you understand that that's the goal, and when you identify it, you stop throwing gasoline on the fire, you have an entire new body every few years. So the question is, are you building more sick cells or are you building stronger cells? And when you reduce the inflammation, you build stronger cells.
Welcome to our podcast, How I Healed My Gut. I'm your host, Dane Johnson, and we have a very special guest, someone who has influenced me and inspired me. And the man's lecture actually was one of the final nails in the coffin for me to be 100% gluten-free years ago. I'm talking about none other than the quote-unquote Sherlock Holmes of autoimmune disease, Dr. Tom O'Brien. And if you don't know him, you need to know him. He's most famous for owning thedoctor.com, for creating the documentary The Inflammation Equation, and also writing the book You Can Fix Your Brain. Dr. Tom O'Brien has trained thousands of doctors around the world and spoke all around the world around food sensitivities, environmental toxins, and autoimmune disorders that are hidden, and we are unsure of the root causes. So today we're going to be deep diving on some of those root causes and what we can do to restore our gut with Dr. Tom O'Brien. You enjoy.
Boots on the ground. I mean,
Yeah.
You are right there with all of the individuals who are suffering and wanting to know, what do I do and how do I do it?
Yes.
So kudos to you for doing what you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're here to get real results and really figure out where to invest our time, our energy, our money so that we can get free of these epidemics. I mean, Tom, you have been just a trailblazer with the food issues, with helping people become aware of lipopolysaccharides. What are they? How are they happening? What are they doing in the body? Systemic inflammation. You went as far as to build this beautiful documentary helping to outline how inflammations connect everything, how we can reduce it. And also gluten. I mean, really raising awareness of what is this problem with gluten? Why were our ancestors not having problems with it? Why are we having problems? Why is it worse in America? Why are we seeing inflammatory bowel disease, IBS, and other gut health issues just go skyrocket? Autoimmune disease, all connected to the gut. Can you first tell us, how did you become so passionate about this, and what was your personal experience that needed to say, I needed to change my life?
Yeah. Well, I've been on the faculty of the Institute for Functional Medicine for about 12 years now. And my role there is to teach about the gut. And so it's a real joy, when traditional physicians come to our courses. We have a 5-day course. We've got them for 5 days, from 7 in the morning until 6 at night for 5 days. And the first day, they're welcomed, they're brought in. Hi, glad you're here. Here's the logistics of what's going to happen. We start with the idea of case studies, and everyone's sitting in round tables of 8. So there's going to be interaction all week. And a couple exercises they do to begin with, and then it goes to lunch. And then after lunch, the first person they get, when we start being geeky and start talking science, is me. And it's about the gut. Because, and I'll say it this way, there is a researcher, I call him the researcher of researchers. His name is Professor Alessio Fasano. He's a professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School, professor of nutrition at Harvard School of Public Health, the chief of pediatric gastroenterology at Mass General at Harvard, the director of mucosal immunology, that's the lining of the gut, the lining of the lungs, the lining of the brain at Harvard, and the director of the Celiac Research Center at Harvard. 5 titles. Any one title is a lifelong dream for someone at the top of their game. He's got 5. He really is exceptional. And we think he's going to win the Nobel Prize because he and his team are the ones that identified the mechanism back in 1997 by which this thing we call leaky gut occurs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a protein called zonulin. And so they identified it, and they've been talking about it now for 25 years and have written hundreds of papers. And Professor Fasano has, last count, 46 papers, research papers, with his name on them and his team. And, there will be 6 researchers on a paper after a year and a half of work. They write up their paper, and the last name, Alessio Fasano, the stamp of approval, right? The boss says this is good to go.
Good.
This paper he wrote himself, and he's always so careful of what he says so he's not misquoted. But this one he wrote himself. So you can imagine how important it is in his mind to get this message out. The title of the paper says it all. All disease begins in the, quote, leaky gut. The role of the protein zonulin in the development of chronic inflammatory diseases. Now, the Center for Disease Control tells us that 14 of the 15 top causes of death in the world today are chronic inflammatory diseases. It's always inflammation, always, without exception. It's Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or rheumatoid or chronic fatigue. It doesn't matter. Migraines, infertility, recurrent miscarriages. It's always inflammation. There's only one mechanism in the development of every disease. It's always inflammation. When we understand that, and this comes from the guru, one of the great minds in our world today, all disease begins in the leaky gut. So if that's the case, how does the gut correlate with inflammation in the body? And when you understand that mechanism, as a general public, you don't need to be a geek to understand this. What you have to understand is that your body is on fire. There's inflammation. Okay, so what is inflammation and how did I get it? Beautiful questions. When you understand, that's not something you get in 5 minutes, But when you put a little time into understanding this, and you don't have to read any books on it, you can just listen to some of your other interviews and listen to you talk about it, or listen to this interview again, or attend the inflammation equation, which we'll talk about. When you understand this big picture, see, here's an analogy. I'm from Detroit originally. Yeah. I grew up in Detroit. I grew up with muscle cars. I'm a really good driver and lots of experiences. There's one city in the world I will not drive in. I will not drive in New Delhi, India.
Okay.
Because a 3-lane road has 5 lanes of cars, and I'm not exaggerating. They're cutting in, they're squeezing each other. They pull their side mirrors in, so they're that close. I'm not driving in that city. I won't do it.
The game's changed over there.
When I am in Delhi, you need a map of how to get around. And once you've got the map, you know where you're going, right? But the map of Delhi does you no good if you're in New York. It's absolutely no good at all. You need a map of New York. So as an individual, you need a map that you understand as to where your discomfort, where your pain, where your dis-ease is coming from. And when you've got that big picture map of what's going on for you, then you know how to get to where you want to go, to better health. You need a map. And the map we need when you're talking about the gut is about inflammation. All disease begins in the gut. And if you have that as your mantra, and I'm talking to your viewers here, if you have that as your mantra to really understand, well, I feel fine, I don't have any inflammation. Yes, you do. It's called low-grade chronic inflammation. And I'd like to tell you about 2 studies because they'll put it in perspective. And these studies are not just on the gut, but it gives you the big picture of how to understand reading the map. The first one is Melissa Arbuckle. Dr. Arbuckle was at Stanford, and she also worked at the VA. And she looked for people in the VA hospital that had the autoimmune disease lupus. And she found 136 people with lupus in the VA hospital. Now, this was 2002 that she did this work. She published it in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2003. So 136 people. Now, if they're in the VA system, they're veterans. If they're veterans, they were in the armed forces. If they were in the armed forces, they had their blood drawn many times when they were in the armed forces, healthy in the Marines or in the Navy. But what most people don't know is that the government has been saving and freezing almost all of that blood since 1978.
We've got blood on these people for 50
millions
years.
of samples, tens of millions of samples.
Over 50 years.
Yeah, of our
And these are
service
Americans.
people's blood. Yeah, right. Well, Dr. Arbuckle knew this. So she asked for permission to look at the frozen blood of our service people who currently have lupus when they were healthy in the Navy or in the Marines. And she got permission, and what did she find? Every single person had all 7 antibodies to lupus. There are 7. They had all 7 antibodies elevated years before they ever had a symptom. Years when they were healthy and vibrant and strong. Some of these antibodies were elevated 11 years before they ever had a problem. All of them were elevated 5 years before they ever had a problem. But, okay, so what? Elevated antibodies. No, we all have antibodies to our own tissue. We all do. And that's because, Mrs. Patient, you have an entire new body every 7 years. Every cell in your body regenerates, every single cell. Well, how does that happen? You have to get rid of the old and damaged cells to make room for new cells, right? And that's called autophagy. That's a geek word, good Scrabble word. It means get rid of the old cells, nice, and make room for the new ones. Well, antibodies are part of the process of doing that. So you do a blood test for your thyroid. Your doctor thinks you have a thyroid problem, so he checks your antibodies. And the usual range is 0 to 36, 38, depending on the lab. So you got 22 antibodies. Well, that's fine. That's perfect. You're getting rid of the old and damaged cells to make room for the new cells. But when you have 400 antibodies, you're killing off more cells than you're making, right? So that's the problem with elevated antibodies. You're killing off more cells than you're making. Okay? Arbuckle found that with lupus, every single person had elevated antibodies years before they ever had a symptom.
So we could have treated it.
She called that the prodromal period. Prodromal, it comes from the Greek word prodromos, which means before, before symptoms. So you had no symptoms. You felt fine. I'm fine. I feel good. I'm fine. Well, but you're killing off cells, killing off cells, killing off cells. You just don't know it yet because you haven't killed off so many cells that your tissue can't work right. And so now you have symptoms. This is prodromal. That was the first study. The second study, in 2017, the government made announcements. It was on the front page of most every paper in the country. Medicare will be bankrupt in 25 years because of Alzheimer's. That more people are getting Alzheimer's and we can't afford it. It's going to bankrupt the country.
Yeah, killed my grandparents. Yeah, both my grandparents passed away of it.
Got it. Sorry.
Yeah.
So they commissioned a group. They brought scientists together to figure out what are we going to do. It took them 2 years to write their report. But part of that report is this drawing that I just drooled when I saw it. It said, this is gold. If I can show this to all of our doctors and all of our patients, they start to understand. Because what they showed is that there is a prodromal period for Alzheimer's. When there's inflammation in your brain, it's a prodromal, before symptom period. And they identified it as 20 to 25 years before you ever have a symptom. Killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells, until you've killed off so many brain cells. Now you walk out into the parking lot of the shopping center. What road did I park my car at? Where's my keys? A person walking towards me, what's their name? Now you have symptoms. That's categorized. They categorize it as mild cognitive decline. You're not quite remembering the way you used to. And we joke about it, so I'm getting old. I don't remember the way I used to, right? And that goes for 5 to 7 years. Then you get the diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So it's 20 to 30 years after the problem begins. And what's the problem? Increased inflammation in the prodromal period that's killing off brain cells, non-stop while you feel fine. And all of this begins in the gut. So one more concept. If you pull at a chain, the chain always breaks at the weakest link. Always. It's at one end, the middle, the other end. It's your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys. Doesn't matter. Wherever the weak link is. And that's determined by your genetics and how you live your life. It's called antecedents. We'll talk about that later, maybe. But there's a weak link. Well, the pull on the chain is inflammation. So whether it manifests as chronic fatigue or as Hashimoto's thyroid disease or as seizures or attention deficit, it doesn't matter how it manifests. It's the pull on the chain that eventually causes the problem. And when you understand that, now you've got the map, or you understand, oh, there's a map that I need to get. And okay, I'm learning how to read maps. Okay, well, what's the map that you need? The map that you need is, where is your inflammation coming from? Is it gasoline or kerosene? Is it charcoal lighted?
How big's the fire?
That's right.
Yeah.
How big is the fire? And how are you fueling the fire? What is it in your lifestyle that's fueling the fire? That's the key. When you understand that that's the $1 million question, and you identify what those triggers are, and then you begin to address the lifestyle that includes those triggers, whether it's a food sensitivity or mold in your house or a toxic relationship or bad air pollution because you live near a freeway. I mean, kids that live within half mile of a freeway, much higher incidence of attention deficit and on Ritalin and other stimulatory drugs, much higher if they live near a freeway. Why? Because they're breathing those fumes all day, every day.
Yep,
right?
Air, food, and water. Just look there, air, food, and water. But two big points I think that are takeaways from that. And well, first, before I get to the 2 points, we're just seeing that you are in the trenches to prove these things, to do the clinical research, to help change government, to work with the biggest and strongest universities, clinics, doctors, double-blind placebo-controlled studies to say, this is real, guys. This is not just talk. This is not a conspiracy theory. And so you're paving that way. You're the trailblazer in that. I see that in a big way. But two things I think I'm really, if I'm listening right now, number one, I can have no symptoms or minimal symptoms, and this is a problem. So
that's
even if
the
I'm having
period.
That's the prodromal. So if I'm having just, hey, Dane, I was diagnosed with a little gastritis or a little IBS, and I get 2 bowel movements a day. They're normal. They don't look bad. If I'm on that side of the fence, it's going, no. This is probably just going to get worse if you don't address the inflammate, find it and address it, even if it's low-grade inflammation. And that pivots to the second point. I'm seeing you agree with me on that, right? You could have almost no symptoms in the gut or minimal symptoms.
Symptoms are way down the road.
They're way down.
If you're diagnosed with an itis, diagnosed with an itis, conjunctivitis, bursitis, arthritis, colitis,
ulcerative colitis, proctitis, diverticulitis, gastritis, yes.
You're way down the road already, guaranteed.
You're burning.
Not probably, guaranteed. You're down the road.
You're burning. But that goes on to my next question, because when we look at this, we say, well, let's check our labs. So Tom, can you give us an idea of how we can get ahead of this? What antibodies could we check for, let's talk about anything around IBD, IBS. We are checking calprotectin, and we have people coming back with calprotectin who are still getting normal calprotectin, but still getting symptoms. We have people who have a very high hypersensitive CRP, but then they have normal calprotectin. Or we have people with high sedimation rate, ESR, but normal CRP. And those are three, everyone listening right now, you have to know those three just to start. Calprotectin, sedimation rate, hypersensitive CRP, check those. Those are the obvious gas guzzling inflammatory responses. But what else? Is there something else we can check to get ahead of this?
My goodness,
And
yes,
yes,
because
go ahead.
the three that you mentioned are really important, and the science on those and when those became available was over 20 years ago. SR was 40 years ago. So they're really good markers. But technology, look, if I had told you in 1990 that, in about 20, 30 years or so, I'm going to hold this little black thing in my hand, the size
You wouldn't believe me.
of a wallet, and there's no buttons on this thing. I'm just going to push it, or I'm going to slide one way or the other. I'm just going to touch it. And I can tell you in 5 seconds that the air particulate matter here where I live is 57 today. It's not a good day to be outside exercising. It's not. Whereas in Chicago, it's 30. It's a good day air quality to exercise. San Francisco's 30. It's a good day for San Francisco to be outside. I've got the encyclopedia of the world here, and I can tell you almost anything you want to know in 5 seconds. If I had told you that in 1990, you would have thought I was watching too much Star Trek.
Yeah.
Right?
It is. It's Star Trek, yeah.
It's beyond our scope of understanding. The same technology improvements have occurred in laboratory medicine. There is technology now that is right on the money every single time. And most doctors don't know this. They don't know that their labs are wrong 2 or 3 out of 10 times. That's the average. They're completely wrong 2 or 3 out of 10 times. And when I'm on stage, I say, you have to do double blinds. And what does that mean? It means when you draw some blood out of a patient's arm, you take another tube of blood from the same draw, and you label the second tube Joe Smith. And you send it to the same lab and order the same test as with your patient, and don't tell the lab, and the doctor has to pay for it themselves, but then you see the result. What? Wait, what? And you don't know which test result to talk to them about 3 out of 10 times. You don't know because they're so very different.
That's interesting. Well, inflammation does change, right? Inflammation's volatile.
Yes.
You could have a CRP elevated the next week, it's lower. Calprotectin's 800, the next bowel movement, it's 550. It's also like where, because the inflammation's changing, but also with calprotectin, there are a pocket of white blood cells in the stool that might have been caught in one versus the other. That's why some people like to use the GI 360. We get 3 stool analysis. And I was asking Vibrant America about that when we were over at the longevity conference. And I was like, guys, what about that? What about testing multiple ones? But they are very confident that their specificity, and their uniqueness to get those results are very high. And I think, do we need to do those multiple tests with someone like Vibrant America? What do you think?
Vibrant America has changed the game. Their technology, Mayo Clinic wrote about this, and I cut my teeth in the world of wheat-related disorders and gluten sensitivity, right?
Yes.
And so that's where I started. It was a big problem because sometimes patients do the blood test that was available and it comes back negative. And that's, no, see, you're fine with wheat. You don't have a problem. Say, but
no,
doc,
that's
if I eat
crazy.
wheat, I don't feel good. I get bloated. I don't feel good. I say, well, it's stress. They make it up. No, it was the test. It was the test. And then Mayo Clinic in January of 2016, they published a paper and they called it a new era in laboratory medicine, with 97 to 99% sensitivity and 98 to 100% specificity, right on the money every single time. And that changed the game. And the labs don't like it when you talk about Vibrant's technology because they're not up to that game. Their sensitivity and specificity is much less than that.
So Vibrant, yeah, go ahead.
So I've looked at the research on Vibrant stool analysis. It's really impressive. And I think it's 94 to 100% sensitive and specific. So I've never seen tests that are this accurate before.
And guys, for everyone listening, layman's terms, how sensitive can we actually find what's there? And what's the accuracy that what we find is actually the problem?
Right.
And Vibrant America is setting the stage at doing that the best.
And
that's,
Vibrant now
yeah.
has a number of tests out because you asked the question about are there tests that we can use now that will tell us more? And the answer is yes, absolutely. They have an autoimmune panel. It's called the Autoimmune Zoomer that's just coming out on the market now. And it looks at something like 40 different markers of antibodies. And so when I'm seeing a patient, there's 3 tests that I do automatically. And if it's a really difficult, long history patient, I've been to everybody, nobody can help, then I'll do 4 tests. And they're all from Vibrant. The first one's called the Wheat Zoomer because you zoom in on the problem and it identifies leaky gut, most accurate test for leaky gut I've ever seen. And it identifies the sensitivity to wheat, which maybe we'll get into today as to why it's so important, but it's critically important. The second test is the Neural Zoomer Plus. Now, the Neural Zoomer Plus looks at 53 markers of antibodies in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a measure, it's the most accurate measure of inflammation in the brain I've ever seen. Just exceptional.
Like the anti-dopamine receptor, anti-titin, looking for Epstein-Barr inside of megalovirus. Yeah.
No matter what your symptoms are. We do this one because quite literally scares the hell out of you when you get the results back, and now you're really motivated to change the lifestyle as you explore what is it in my lifestyle that's causing this test result.
Okay.
The Blue Cross came out with a study in February of 2020. It got no press whatsoever because the virus came out then. That was a big deal. But they said, we've got a real problem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, we've got a real problem. In the last 4 years, there was a 407% increase in the diagnosis of Alzheimer's in 4 years in 30 to 44-year-olds.
30 to 44, 30 years old to 44, 400% increase in diagnosis, which means they're already past the 20 years of getting
the prodromal period.
Prodromal, because the prodromal is 15 to 20 years on that.
Right, 20 to 25 years for the prodromal.
20 to 25, and they're getting diagnosed at as early as 30?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's because mom was so inflamed and baby's brain didn't develop to its full potential. And
just giving them sugar and seed oil since they were a kid, like a 3-year-old.
Depression, or they've got anxiety, which is all brain inflammation symptoms.
It's all connected. Yeah, how we're feeling is connected to how the gut is feeling.
Exactly. All disease begins in the gut.
Yeah, and that's even depression as a disease.
That's right.
Or autistic or ADHD.
Anxiety.
Or OCD, personality issues, magnesium deficiencies, gluten, inflammation. I mean, it's all connected, as you're saying.
All disease begins in the gut. That's why I started off here today talking about Fasano, who is a great in the field, just an unbelievable contributor to the science.
He's a Mozart,
really
right?
Remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote this paper himself. All disease begins in the gut.
So you've got, and I love the 2 tests. So if and everyone, you should know this, that if you want to test and get ahead and look and see what's happening with these antibodies, as Dr. Tom O'Brien's talking about, you gotta be ready to spend about $1,500 to $2,000 and get everything. So we've got the Neurozoomer, brain inflammation.
Right.
The Wheat Zoomer, which is going to check for leaky gut. Zonulin's the protein that's elevated, plus many antibodies for celiac, gluten sensitivity, gluten allergy, the difference between them. So we got those 2. Okay.
The Gut Zoomer.
The Gut Zoomer, so we're checking for calprotectin, digestive ability, elastase 1, fat malabsorption,
parasites, bacterial, viral, parasites,
H. pylori, all sorts of it with, again, high specificity, high sensitivity. So we got the gut, we've got the wheat, and then we've got the Neurozoomer. What's your 4th one?
Total tox burden.
Love it. I love that
because we're looking at mold metabolites, mycotoxins, organophosphates, glyphosate, heavy metals. We're looking at what's been accumulating in our body because many people have heard us talk about the toxic world we live in, and we think it's all out there. But, when you put nail polish on, The phthalates, the chemicals used to mold plastic, the phthalates are in your bloodstream in 4 to 5 minutes. Now, there's no evidence that the amount of phthalates that get into your bloodstream from applying nail polish is toxic to humans. It's minute amounts. There's no evidence. But this stuff accumulates in your body. So give me a cute little girl, 5-year-old girl that paints her 10 little fingers and 10 little toes once a week with mommy.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 20 years, 25 years of doing that. Now, Chicago, 2016, 6 pregnant women. 8th month of pregnancy, they did urine tests on them. And they measured 5 phthalates, chemicals used to mold plastic. There are many more. They just measured 5. One of them was BPA that we've heard about in plastic bottles and all that. And they divided the results into fourths. The pregnant moms with the lowest amount, the next higher amount, the third highest, and then the highest amounts. And then they followed the offspring of these pregnancies for 7 years. When the children turned 7 years old, they did Wechsler IQ tests on them, the official IQ test. What'd they find? Every single child whose mom was in the highest category of phthalates in urine in pregnancy, compared to the kids whose moms were in the lowest category, every child in the highest category, their IQ was 7 points lower. 6.7 to 7.4 points lower. That means nothing to anybody. Until you understand a 1-point difference in IQ is noticeable, a 7-point difference is a difference between a child working really hard, getting straight A's in school, and a child working really hard, really working, getting straight C's. This child doesn't have a chance in hell of ever excelling because their brains never developed properly because mom was high in phthalates that had accumulated over her lifetime.
Wow.
So when we talk about toxins, we're not just talking about what's out there in the world or on the food you're eating, which is really, really important.
Yeah.
But we're talking about what's accumulated in your body over the 30, 40 years you've been on the planet. And you have to identify that. That's the total tox burden.
Mold, environmental, and heavy metal. The trifecta. And it's cheaper because you get 3 tests for the cost of 2.
Right.
Which is great. So
right.
I actually just did my total tox last week.
Oh.
I love that test, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting more interested on testing mold in blood versus urine. I know Dr. Campbell's doing some work on that.
Yes.
That's for another day, but it's very exciting what he's potentially talking about and sporanox and killing everything, right?
Right.
So, but, and I had so we have a professional basketball player in our program. I did a testimony with her yesterday, and she said she moved out of her house. We were working with her for a couple of months, got 60% symptom relief. Then she moved out of her house, and within a week, 100% symptom relief. Blood was gone in the stool. What happened? I'm thinking mold.
Yeah,
you could be breathing in these things that are causing inflammation. You go, how is it? Dr. Tom, I'm already gluten-free. Dr. Tom, I'm meditating every day. I'm in the sauna. But even what you're breathing in could be causing gut inflammation.
That's exactly right.
What you're touching, you're touching, you know,
right.
And it's everywhere. I mean, and our bodies are getting weakened by this. And here's a thought is what you just said about the phthalates. This means the core problem is our organic divine body does not have the ability to properly detox these alien chemicals that the body has never come in contact with for thousands of years, except for 30 years ago. Like, boom, that's a bunch of alien chemicals. You think the liver and the lymph can deal with that properly?
That's really a great point. And it is the reason why wheat is such a problem today. Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about what we can do today. What are the big steps we can do to stop this inflammation? If we're not
the rule is, as you referenced Dr. Campbell, in God we trust. Yeah. All others require data.
Yeah.
So you
double
need
blind
the map.
data.
You need the map.
Yes.
You need the map of
Give me the
your
map,
body.
Tom. Give me the map.
That's right. Wheat Zoomer, NeuroZoomer Plus, Total Tox Burden, Gut Zoomer.
Beautiful.
That's the big 4.
Okay.
Now you've got the map. Some people are sensitive to lectins or to egg or to dairy, and so there's other possibilities. But the big kahunas, those are the 4 big ones that usually you're going to nail it. and you're going to get relief fairly quickly once you identify where the triggers are coming from. And if it's already inside your body, you start the detoxing to get that stuff out. And you notice in a relatively short period of time, you're doing so much better. Now, this thing about wheat, why? The question is why? Because I feel fine when I eat wheat. Or I get a little bloating maybe, but, it's no big deal.
We've been having it for 20 years. Why now?
Right. We have the exact same body as our ancestors thousands of years ago. Exactly the same. Knees, eyes, immune system, gut, muscles, bones, everything functions the same. And 10,000 years ago, agriculture began. Before that, and 10,000 years is a blip on the screen of human existence. Before agriculture, all of our ancestors were nomads. They followed the herds. So they always had some food around. The herds know where to go for food all year. And so people followed the herds. And their number one concern was food. Then safety, but first was food. So they find something. First they sniff it, then they nibble at it, and then they eat it. If they couldn't identify that there was a bad bug, a dangerous bug, if it didn't smell so bad and they couldn't identify it, the acid in our stomach is supposed to kill it. But we have a backup system. They had a backup system. If it didn't kill it, and these bad bugs come out of the stomach into the intestine, because food and water gets into your bloodstream and into your body in the intestines, not from the stomach, right? It's got to go through the stomach to be killed off, the bad stuff, and then it goes into the intestines. Now things get absorbed into the bloodstream. So right at where food comes out of the stomach into the small intestine, we have sentries standing guard there. They're the soldiers at Buckingham Palace with the big hats. I like to think of those guys are as stiff as can be. They're dormant. They're not doing anything, but do not mess with those guys. And in our intestines, we've got those guys that are called toll-like receptors. Mm-hmm. And their job is to identify everything that comes from the stomach into the intestines. Are there any bugs here? Are there any bugs here? Are there any bugs? No, that's all right. Is there any bugs here? And they look for what I call orange vests. They're looking for the orange vest. What's the orange vest? It's the shell on the outside of bad bugs. It's the amino acid structure of the suit of armor that bad bugs have called lipopolysaccharides. But it's like a suit of armor to protect the bacteria. So toll-like receptors are looking for that amino acid structure. And if they see the orange vest, if they see the amino acids, two things happen within 5 minutes. First, toll-like receptors say, I need more zonulin here, the protein to open up leaky gut. So the cells open a little bit and water comes from the body into the tube of the intestine to wash out the bad bug with the poop.
Diarrhea.
That's right. So leaky gut is not bad for you. It saves our life. It saved our ancestors' life every day. Excessive leaky gut is bad for you.
Chronic.
Right? So that's the first thing that happens. The second thing is that the sentries standing guard activate NF-kappa B, the major amplifier of inflammation. Now, NF-kappa B is the desk sergeant at the police station. You guys, you're in this neighborhood today. You guys go over here. You guys, you're going over here. You guys, you're up here. And we call those cytokines, IL-1 beta, IL-6, tumor necrosis factor, interleukin.
Yeah,
but
all the attackers.
Right, all the attackers that create the inflammation in your gut to kill the bug.
Which we need. It's a problem when it's chronic.
Right, exactly right. So those ancestors that didn't have good toll-like receptor function or didn't have good leaky gut capability or good NF-kappa B and inflammation to kill the bug, those ancestors died. They did not reproduce. They got sick and died. Their lineage is gone. So all of us, because we're here today, all of us came from those ancestors that have really good toll-like receptors to protect our gut.
the strongest.
So whenever you throw anything in there that's a problem, your toll-like receptors get activated. It's genetic. It's there to protect you. Here's the problem. No human can digest wheat completely. So it breaks down into what are called peptides, which are clumps of these amino acids. And some of the peptides look like the armor of the bad bacteria. And the way Fasano says it in his papers is gluten is misinterpreted as a harmful component of a microorganism. So every human recognizes wheat as an invader, as a bad bug. Every one of us, well, I feel fine when I eat wheat. Well, just wait a few years until your rheumatoid starts manifesting or your Hashimoto's thyroid, wherever your weak link is. But the inflammation is coming from what you're putting down there.
Dr. Tom, how have people like Italians who have some of the highest life expectancy been eating gluten for 100+ years? What is this whole idea of there's bad gluten and there's better for you? Gluten foods.
There's a couple things we have to break out in there because you brought Italy into it. And so a lot of people say, well, I can go to Europe and I can eat the wheat and I'm just fine. No, you're not. You just don't get the symptoms. You don't get the bloating and the gas because it's not the proteins of wheat, the gluten proteins that create the bloating and the gas. It's the FODMAPs. They're carbohydrates. They're fermentable carbohydrates in wheat that some people have the sensitivity to, and they get the bloating and the gas and the abdominal pain and all that. The gluten proteins activate the immune system. They activate the inflammation that goes in your bloodstream, and it manifests at the weak link, whether it's your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys. So the gluten proteins in wheat activate your systemic problems. The FODMAPs activate the gut problems. And the wheat in Europe is lower in FODMAPs. So you don't get the gut symptoms, but you still get the immune response. I've had so many patients, we say, all right, they say, Doc, I'm going to Europe. So my antibodies are down now. We did the retest and everything's good. It's been a year and a half and I'm good. I can eat the wheat now? And I say, no. And I explain this, but they say, yeah, but I'm
better.
normal now.
I don't feel anything. Yeah.
Look, here's what you do. We just did the follow-up blood test. Everything's normal. Way to go. You're symptom-free. You feel great. Your migraines are gone or whatever the autoimmune disease is in remission. Way to go. Okay, go to Europe, eat the wheat, and when you come back, we'll do the tests again. And we'll see, did your immune system get reactivated? And every single time, the antibodies are back to their thyroid or to their brain or to their rheumatoid. It doesn't matter where the weak link is, but it's back again. But I felt great. I ate the pasta over there and it was so much fun and I really liked it with the wine. It was really great. Well, here's the price you paid for that. Now.
Yeah. Dr. Tom, I heard you lecture on this 10 years ago, and it's what got me over the hump of getting rid of gluten. And Becky was giving me a hard time. Rebecca Murray, who introduced us, she's kind of like my naturopath mother, helped really move me in and introduced me to Tommy years ago. He was like, I don't know who this kid is, but you probably don't remember. I do though. And that lecture finally got me over the hump of I'm better now with my Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. Let me celebrate with a little gluten here and there. And I can't say I haven't run into it. And I have ways of protecting myself with my shield. But that lecture on it will never serve any of us in any way. It can only hurt us. It does not have any nutrient benefit or it's just it's like alcohol. It's just a celebration.
Well, it does have a little nutrient benefit. It saved millions of lives. That's true.
Okay. Yes. For calories and
Right. But it's not enriched, And the danger of gluten-free, if we can talk about that for a minute, the danger of gluten-free is that people replace their wheat with gluten-free bread and gluten-free cookies and gluten-free pasta, which is just crap. It's all crap. And the best message that I've seen came out of Italy 3 years ago, the Mediterranean gluten-free diet. And if you Google Mediterranean gluten-free diet, the paper comes up. And when you look at the paper online, you see the pyramid. They did the food pyramid. And it's the best food pyramid I've ever seen to give guidance. And I recommend to all of our patients, print it out and put it on your refrigerator for a month or two as a reminder every day. And what's at the bottom of the pyramid? The thing that we all need and we all forget, water. That's at the bottom of the pyramid because most of us are dehydrated. You can't detox unless you're well hydrated. You've got to have your roads running really well, all lanes of traffic open to get the crap out. You know,
Yeah,
you've got
your lymph, your liver, your gut.
That's right. And at the very top of the pyramid is gluten-free foods. Once in a while, as a treat.
The Paleolithic lifestyle.
Exactly.
Before processed food, the amount of gluten we ever had 100 years ago was so minimal. There just wasn't a lot of wheat around.
Exactly.
Where do you find gluten? Open a wrapper. There you have gluten. If you actually pick it, you won't have gluten. And so that's kind of an interesting thought. The amount of gluten we're having is so much higher. And the process of it, and then the glyphosate, which is absolutely horrific for you, that Dr. Zach Bush has just shown over and over in his product Ion Biome, great for gliadin toxicity and glyphosate toxicity around the zonulin. But the thing here that I think a lot of people who are already on this, okay, gluten's bad, but what about fermentation, Dr. Tom? What about the glyphosate issue? I go to Italy, glyphosate's banned. They don't have all the sprays on the gluten. They're fermenting it for 72 hours, reducing gliadin. Or I go to my local farmer and he goes, don't worry, it's low gliadin gluten bread. You heard that one.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? I mean, this is that advanced person who's listening right now going, Tom, I've done my homework. What about these?
Yeah, well, it's a difference between getting a bachelor's degree and a PhD.
Okay.
And so as you learn a little more, there's only one paper I've ever seen, only one, where fermentation of wheat completely eliminated activating toll-like receptor 4. And I was really excited by it. I said, great, because I love croissants. I really love croissants. I want my croissant. And it completely eliminated, but it required 7 different strains of Lactobacillus san franciscus, some yeast, but 7 strains. They tried 2 strains or 4 strains and 5. They mixed them around. No, only 7. And with all 7 of them, there was no activation of your immune system at all. But it's not commercially viable. They can't do it commercially. And so I've not seen anything else ever. And, people say, oh, here's a study. I say, did you read the study or did you just read the abstract, the summary of the study?
Yeah.
Well, I read the abstract. And it says, but if you read the study, you see it reduced the activation of the immune system, but it did not stop the activation of the immune system. And
so
you've
it's
got
safer.
An autoimmune mechanism going on, Mrs. Patient. You've got 14 different antibodies to your brain that are elevated right now. You can't throw a little gasoline on the fire. You can't be a little pregnant. You can't eat a little gluten. So, I mean, unfortunately, that's just the status.
It's reducing the fire, but the fire is still there. We're still getting antibody
it's
reaction.
not okay to reduce the fire if you've got an autoimmune mechanism going on.
So if it's organic, it's fermented without the glyphosate, and if we're even taking glutalytic acid, some of these supplement companies come out with these sensitivity digestive enzymes that help break down the gliadin before it gets to the small intestine.
Yes.
And that could also help the fire.
I've put together 2 different digestive enzymes that do exactly that.
And how well do they work, in your opinion?
99.9%.
Okay, so if I'm in Italy and they're going, Tom, I get you. I can't stay away from the croissant. They take 4 caps of that type of digestive. And which one would you recommend? They take that. They get the fermented version without the glyphosate. The fire's tiny. They're looking for an out. I'm battling for them here, Tom. In the wrong way. Yeah.
2. The first one is called E3 Advanced. E3 Advanced, there's if you have gut symptoms from wheat, if you get bloating or gas, E3 Advanced has bacteriophages in it, which will take out some of the bad bacteria. So it has all the digestive enzymes to break down any inadvertent exposure to wheat, plus the bacteriophages. So, and if you don't have gut symptoms from wheat, but you've got an autoimmune mechanism going on, or you did the Neurozoomer Plus and it tests for 53 antibodies to your brain and you've got 22 elevated, so you can't have any inflammation at all, you use Wheat Rescue. Wheat Rescue has a little extra hydrochloric acid in it to make sure to digest everything completely. So with gut symptoms, you do E3.
Okay.
Without gut symptoms, you do Wheat Rescue, and then you're protected.
Okay. So guys, you heard it. We got a little bit of a wiggle, but it's not going to help you. It's only going to hurt you. But if you're celebrating, there's a possible way, but you need to get your antibodies down, get your symptoms down first, and keep it very, maybe once a month or once every 2 months. The half-life's usually 28 days on that reaction, right, on that inflammatory reaction, would you say?
It depends. The antibodies, if you activate toll-like receptor, the antibodies to your thyroid or to your brain or to wherever it is, whatever your genetic vulnerability is, have a lifespan of somewhere between 2 and 4 months. So from a single exposure, you will have elevated antibodies in your brain, killing off brain cells, killing off for 2 to 4 months.
Or killing off cells in the gut, increasing chains of inflammation linked with cancers and senescent cells.
Exactly.
All over the body. It's killing off body cells all over.
2 to 4 months.
2 to 4 months of that killing for each
from a single exposure.
So this is serious. So
it's really serious. And unfortunately, people usually need to be sick enough and desperate enough before they'll listen. Then they're ready to read the map.
Yeah. And that was me. I was sick. I was fighting for my life for years and I got better, but I got better. And when I was better, I said, I'm going to now go do those things. And then I'd feel a little worse and I get back on the train and then I get better and then I go do those things. And like I said, and then I remember hearing you lecture on this and I was like, I have to get over this spiritually. I have to. I grew up on Doritos, 2%. I grew up in Virginia. Everything was processed. I worked at Papa John's Pizza for 4 years, Tom.
Yeah, that'll do
14 years old to 18 years old. All of a sudden I got blood in the stool at 19. I wonder why, right?
Yeah. You were breathing it all day, every day, or at work.
I was living
day.
on whey protein. The General Narcotics Center, GNC. I was living on that whey protein, that crap whey protein, trying to get big and strong young man.
Yeah.
And living on that 2%, everything gluten, everything processed milk. So yeah, I can see that. We've got to get maybe pain to purpose, right? Maybe when we're here, if you're sick, this is the conversation you need to hear, like I heard from Tom saying, it can only hurt you and everyone around you. It's not just because you were sick. It's bad for humans.
Yeah.
It's bad for humans.
Dane, that message is a really strong message. And my experience so far is we have the highest % success rate on complete compliance for those people that have a family history of dementia or Parkinson's.
They've seen it.
And when they do the Neurozoomer Plus, it scares the hell out of them. Then they understand what they're up against. Once they understand this concept of inflammation, 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases, and they understand the prodromal period where it's killing off tissue, but you feel fine, and they understand that, but they've already got symptoms now. So do you mean this has been going on for 20 years? Yeah, likely. Yeah. And you've lost a lot of tissue already. And once they understand all that, then they are empowered internally to really focus and dial down. And then their lives change. 6 months later, they haven't seen a friend of theirs. What happened to you? You look great.
Yeah.
Wow, you're radiating. Because they did what took you many years to do.
That's it. And it was a spiritual shift, guys. It's not just what you know, it's how you feel. If you attack how you feel and go after your why of this perception of reality, why am I needing stuff?
Yeah.
How does it connect to my happiness? You will shift. Dr. Tom, can you tell us a few other takeaways about someone's listening? They're really into this. They're saying, what are some other things I can do today? I get it. I need to get rid of gluten no matter what. What are some other things I can do to help calm down inflammation that you think are most likely going to be a problem if they did those 4 tests?
Well, we did this thing. We put this thing together called the inflammation equation. And that's
linked below, guys.
And it's 9 episodes, about 45 minutes a day. And I went to 7 countries and interviewed the world leaders, literally the go-to guys in the world. And before we turn the cameras on, I say, now, Professor, when we're talking, if you say something that is a word that the audience might not understand, I may interrupt you to ask for some clarification. Oh, okay, fine. And so they're talking, say, excuse me, Professor. And they look at me like, you're interrupting me? But I mean, these are the greats in the field that people just bow down to, right?
But they speak a whole new language too.
Yeah, they do. But they were kind enough to work with us on this because they understood what we were trying to do. And when you hear the greats talking about this, and every day, my partner in this, Tom Malter, and I, at the end, we do a summary, about a 4 or 5 minute summary, and then there's an implementation guide. Here's how you handle the topics of today. Boom, 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 boom. Here's how you handle the topics of today and tomorrow. Boom, 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 boom. Here's the foods you look for to achieve this result. Boom, 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 boom. And it's all free. It's all free. So if you guys click on the link there and just check out the first episode, just check it out. And if it doesn't fire you up right away, say, all right, well, it's no sweat. It took 45 minutes out of my life. Not a big deal.
No, I mean, look, we're sitting down watching Netflix all the time, and it's mindless. Sit down with the family. Yeah. That's what I do. I sit down with my wife. My kids are a little young. I got a 4-year-old, right? He's like, he's not going to watch it. But, even I invite my parents. I send it to my sisters because the more the people I love the most get the message, the more my reality changes that we all agree, let's go to this restaurant instead of this.
Yes.
Let's have this type of Christmas instead of this. So one thing I've done is I've enrolled others on how I live is better for everybody.
Yes.
And then they look at me and how I'm inspired, how I'm happy, how I don't poison myself. It's not that I can't have it. I don't want it. There's a difference.
Yes.
There's a difference. I don't poison myself, sir.
It took me 8 years to give up Christmas cookies. 8 you go home to visit the folks. Thanks for the
vulnerability and truth for all of us out there who struggle with this. The sensei, 8 years to get off Christmas cookies. I'm gonna laugh at that one for a while.
I mean,
I'll use them with the next client who's struggling.
Then.
Yeah,
feel free. Feel free.
It took Tom 8 years to get off cookies. Okay, this ain't easy.
It's not that easy, but it's the intent. It's the intent, and if you fall down, you just pick yourself up and keep walking forward. You can do this. Everyone can do it. We've seen so many autoimmune diseases reverse, so much cognitive decline reverse. It's not difficult once you've got the map. And I don't mean to downplay the seriousness or the comprehensiveness of what has to happen, but once you understand you're looking at a map here, and you've got the map of your body and what the triggers are, and you begin addressing those triggers, then you start seeing the changes pretty quickly.
And you feel better. And I think something that's helped me, and I know it's helped you, is the more you study this stuff, the easier you get where you go with the answers it's right there. Yes. If you watch the inflammation equation, I bet your fortitude to stay away from poisoning yourself will get much stronger. If you and your wife, you and your husband, you and your kids, you and your mom, dad, brother, sister, significant other, sit down and just get out something clean to eat and watch it. It's a beautifully made documentary, and it's high end. It's exciting to watch. It's not some selfie mode thing. You spent thousands and thousands, multi-factor building this out, and you're giving it to the world to teach them. This is how you reduce inflammation, connected with 99% of every disease. I don't care if you're dealing with autoimmune, heart disease. And if you're sitting here going right now, I want you to think about who in your life you want to see healthier. Like for me, I'm thinking about my dad right now. Just in our talk, I was thinking, man, the next time my dad comes to my house, I'm going to have the neuro zoomer, the gut zoomer, the total tox burden, and the wheat tox burden. I'm going to have it ready for him. I'm going to have a phlebotomist come to my house and say, "Pops, sit down."
Yeah.
He's actually there, and his parents died of Alzheimer's. And I'm like, and he's 67, and I'm going, we got to do this. See, I'm already having a takeaway. What's your takeaway out there? What are you going to do? Watch it. Just sit down with your dad, sit down with your mom and say, hey, let's just watch this documentary on what's causing inflammation connected to all disease so we can all be healthier and happier, not watch our loved ones suffer. Because I suffered. I've been there, and you don't know what it's like. Until you've suffered, you don't know how much this matters.
Amen to that. Dane,
and I've suffered.
2 things. Yeah. 2 things. One is the blood tests, you can do a finger prick. just a finger prick for all three that are blood tests, and it's just as accurate as the venipuncture is, and the total tox burns urine sample. So you can do finger prick. It's that, so you can do it for your kids, everyone. And if you decide to do any of these tests, you get the tests done, and then I'll come back on your show and I'll interpret it for you.
There we go. All right. I'll get you all four, and we'll do another one and talk about the results.
Yeah, and so you tell your tribe when you're going to be doing that. Hey, I'm ordering these tests. If you guys want to order the tests in 2 months or 3 months, I'll have Dr. Tom on and we'll go through the results. Because it's difficult to interpret the NeuroZoomer Plus. It's 53 markers of your brain.
Yeah.
53.
And most of those are going to say, hey, this could be a allergy of a food. This could be Lyme disease. This could be Epstein-Barr virus or cytomegalovirus.
Heavy metals or mold.
Mercury, all of it, right? So we still have to get rid of these toxins and pathogens. It's usually around there that there's something happening. And we got to strengthen our digestion, fix that gut lining, calm down that zonulin, balance the microbiome. So much we can do. I love this, Tom. For anyone out there, and I know you've seen these types of patients before, someone who's been sick forever, seen a bunch of naturopath doctors, they feel like healing is not possible for them. They're here listening out of hope. What would be that word to the person who's already spent the money, tried the things? What would you say to that person as an idea of hope? Is it possible to really heal still?
All disease begins in the gut. This is what they're teaching at Harvard Medical School. When you understand that you have to get the map of where you are throwing gasoline on the fire, how you're throwing gasoline on the fire, when you understand that that's the goal, and when you identify it, you stop throwing gasoline on the fire, you have an entire new body every few years. So the question is, are you building more sick cells or are you building stronger cells? And when you reduce the inflammation, you build stronger cells. And so your skin looks better, your connections of your nerve cells are better, the blood vessels are more saturating the tissue with blood. I mean, everything starts working better as you reduce the inflammation. It's just basic common sense. There's no one pill that's magic. There's no one diet that's going to fix you by itself. It's as you develop the map of what's going on in your body, and you learn how to read the map with the help of experts, but you learn how to read the map, and then you start addressing this stuff. One last analogy for you, one last one. Most guys anyway, have had this experience. You're going to start a charcoal fire. So you squirt the charcoal lighter fluid on the coals and you throw a match on it and it doesn't catch. What do? You light another match and you lay it down on the coals so the flame is going, and then you don't squirt the flame with the charcoal lighter fluid because it drowns the flame out. Rather, you squirt on the charcoals and the splash catches the flame, and then the flame will travel. You'll be able to light the thing that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most guys have had that experience. What would happen if instead of charcoal lighter fluid, I poured gasoline on there?
What? Yeah.
That's your triggers. That's your environmental triggers in your body. Maybe it's gluten, maybe it's mold, maybe it's mercury. We don't know. You got to find out. But you're looking for the gasoline on the fire. And when you stop throwing the gasoline on the fire, when you avoid the exposure, now your body builds stronger cells. Now you start to heal.
Love that. And I'm hearing a big thing is, guys, focus on the defense. Don't get overwhelmed about what you have to do and start deciding what you're not going to do.
Right.
Just decide what you're going to not do. Just go outside, breathe some air, get some light sunshine, put your feet in the grass, say a prayer, find gratitude, love and hug those you care about, and just stay away from hurting yourself. That's the first thing. And find balance and find happiness in that process.
Yeah, it's a nice message. Really nice message.
Tom, I've so much enjoyed this. I'm going to go get those, and I'd love to do a second call going over the results of this test. We'll get an example for you and do that. Where can people find you?
The website is thedr.com, thedoctor.com. Just don't spell the word doctor out, thedr.com.
All right. And you can find them on Instagram and all over. Thank you so much for being here. Healing is possible, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dane.
Hey, thanks so much for checking out our content. And if you liked it, please like, subscribe, and share. It greatly helps us out. And if you need personal help with IBD, IBS, or your gut health, you can go ahead and schedule a session with our team to deep dive on your case and your needs and how we can get real results. I'll put a link right around here or below. And just remember that you're not alone. Please reach out and connect. We can do this, but more importantly, we can do it together. Happy healing.